I have been living in the city for about 5 years now. I won't say which city, but it's big, it's old, and at night, it feels empty. I've always been a night owl. I'm a writer, and I do my best thinking when the rest of the world is asleep. For years, I had a ritual. Around 1 or 2, 0 inches the morning, when my brain felt fried, I would go for a walk. I know what you're thinking. Walking alone in a major city at 2 a.m. sounds like a death wish, but you have to understand the geography. I lived in a very quiet, police-patrolled neighborhood. The streets were wide, well-lit, and lined with old brick buildings. It never felt dangerous. It felt peaceful. I loved the silence. I loved the way the streetlights reflected off the damp pavement. For 4 years, I walked those streets every single night, and the scariest thing I ever saw was a raccoon digging through a trash can. I felt invincible. I felt like the night belonged to me. But that feeling died on a Wednesday night in November. It was just after 2 a.m. The air was cold that biting. Damp cold that gets under your jacket. I was walking down a particularly long, straight avenue. The sidewalk was wide enough for 10 people. I was listening to music, but my battery died. I pulled my earbuds out and let them hang around my neck. That silence is the only reason I'm alive to tell this story. I was walking on the left side of the street. Up ahead, maybe a block away, I saw someone. It was a man. He was on the opposite side of the road, moving in the same direction as me, but he wasn't walking. He was dancing. It wasn't a drunk stumble. It was a waltz, a graceful, practiced waltz. He would take a long, sweeping step forward, then a step to the side, then twirl. Step, slide, twirl. He was moving down the sidewalk, totally alone, dancing with an invisible partner. I stopped. My first instinct wasn't fear. It was confusion. It looked absurd. I remember thinking, is this guy a street performer practicing? Is he high? I decided to cross the street. Not to get closer, but to get away. I wanted to put more distance between us. I crossed diagonally, keeping my eyes on him. As I got closer, the streetlights illuminated him. He was tall, unnaturally tall and lanky. He was wearing an old-fashioned suit, slightly too big for him. The fabric looked dusty. He was still dancing. Step, slide, twirl. But as I reached the middle of the street, I saw his face. His head was tilted back, looking straight up at the night sky. His eyes were wide open, unblinking, and his mouth was stretched into the widest, most painful-looking grin I have ever seen. It was a cartoon smile. It showed too many teeth. He looked like a marionette puppet whose strings had been cut but was still moving on its own. I reached the sidewalk on the other side. I turned to look at him again. He had stopped. He wasn't dancing anymore. He was standing perfectly still, one foot still extended in a dance step. He was facing me. He wasn't looking at the sky anymore. He was looking directly at me. The distance between us was maybe 50 feet. The street was dead silent. No cars, no wind, just me and him. That smile didn't falter. It didn't twitch. It was frozen like a mask. I felt a primal warning go off in my brain. The kind of instinct that tells a gazelle that a lion is in the tall grass. I shouted out to him. I wanted to break the tension. I wanted to see if he was human. "What do you want?" I yelled. My voice echoed off the brick buildings. He didn't answer. He didn't blink. Then, slowly, he began to move again. But he wasn't waltzing. He took a giant, exaggerated step toward me, then another. He was mimicking the way a cartoon character sneaks around, lifting his knees high, setting his feet down silently. He was mocking me. I turned away. I started walking. Fast. I didn't run. I didn't want to trigger a chase instinct, but I walked as fast as my legs could carry me. My heart was hammering so loud I could hear it in my ears. Thump, 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 thump. I walked for half a block. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself he was just a drunk guy messing with me. I stopped near a streetlight. I needed to know. I turned around to look back. The street was empty. He was gone. For a second, I felt a wave of relief. He must have turned down an alley. He must have gone into a building. But then I squinted into the shadows. He hadn't left. He was crouching. He was huddled on the sidewalk, maybe 30 feet away, squeezed into the shadow of a parked car. He was folded up like a spider, but his face was turned upward. The light caught his eyes. He was still watching me, and he was still smiling. That was the moment the terror truly hit me. This wasn't a drunk. This wasn't a prank. This was a predator. I stood there, frozen, staring at him, crouching in the dark, and then he stood up. He didn't stand up like a normal person. He unfolded. He rose to his full height, shaking out his limbs, and then he started to run. I have never seen a human move like that. He wasn't running normally. He was tiptoeing, but he was doing it at a full sprint. His arms were flailing wildly at his sides. His head was thrown back, looking at the sky again. But his legs were churning, eating up the distance between us. And he was silent, completely silent. No footsteps, no heavy breathing. Just this tall, lanky nightmare hurtling toward me at 20 miles an hour, smiling at the stars. I didn't think. I just ran. I screamed. I didn't care who heard me. I screamed, "Help! Help me!" I sprinted down the middle of the street. I could feel him behind me. I expected to feel cold hands grab my neck. I expected to feel teeth. I ran until my lungs burned. I ran until I saw the light of a 24-hour convenience store about 2 blocks away. I looked over my shoulder one last time. He had stopped. He was standing under a streetlight about a block back. He wasn't panting, he wasn't tired, he was just standing there, watching me run. As I watched, he slowly raised one hand and waved. A stiff, mechanical wave. Then he turned around, did a little spin, and waltzed away into the darkness. Step, slide, twirl. I stayed in that convenience store until the sun came up. The clerk probably thought I was on drugs. I sat by the window, shaking, watching the street. I took a cab home. I called the police, but what could I tell them? A man smiled at me and ran weirdly. They filed a report, but they never found him. I stayed inside my apartment for a week. I slept with the lights on. That was 6 months ago. I still live in the city, but I don't go out at night anymore. I don't listen to music when I walk. And I realized something recently. The scariest part wasn't that he chased me. The scariest part was that when he was running, he looked like he was having fun. He wasn't trying to catch me. If he wanted to catch me, he could have. He was fast enough. He was just playing with me. I was a toy, and somewhere out there, on the empty streets at 2 a.m., he's probably dancing right now, waiting for someone else to play with. Don't walk alone at night. You never know who is smiling in the dark. It's been 10 years. 10 years since I logged off for the last time. I don't use social media anymore. I don't have an Instagram. I don't have Twitter. I keep a piece of tape over the webcam on my work laptop. People think I'm just old-fashioned or maybe a little paranoid about privacy, but I'm not paranoid. I'm traumatized. To understand why, you have to understand who Emily was. She wasn't just my girlfriend. She was the person who made the world make sense. We had been living together for 2 years. We had names picked out for kids we hadn't even conceived yet. On August 7th, 2012, Emily was driving home from work. It was a Tuesday. It was raining. The police told me she didn't suffer. It was a 3-car pileup at an intersection. She died on impact. The weeks after the funeral are a blur. You know how memory works when you're grieving? It's patchy. I remember the smell of the flowers, I remember the taste of whiskey. I remember sitting in our apartment, surrounded by her things, waiting for the front door to open. I couldn't bring myself to delete her Facebook account. It felt like killing her a second time. I wanted to see her face. I wanted to see her tagged photos. I wanted to read the wall posts from her friends saying how much they missed her. So I kept it. I stayed logged in. And sometimes, late at night, when the silence in the apartment got too loud, I would send her a message. I know how that sounds. I knew she was dead. I knew she couldn't read them. But typing "I love you" and hitting enter, it was the only way I could still talk to her. I'd send her updates. I got the promotion. I saw that movie we wanted to see. I miss you so much. It hurts. For 5 months, the chat log was just a long, one-sided scroll of my own grief. Until September 4th, 2013. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home, staring at my computer. I had Facebook open in a tab in the background. Suddenly, I heard it. Ping, the notification sound. I tabbed over, expecting a message from my mom or a buddy. But the chat window that popped up wasn't from them. It was from Emily. My heart didn't just stop. It hammered against my ribs like it was trying to break out. I stared at the name. Emily is typing. You know those 3 little dancing dots? I watched them bubble up and down for what felt like an hour. Then the message appeared. 1 word. Hello. I pushed my chair back so hard, it hit the wall. My first thought wasn't ghosts, it was anger. I thought someone had hacked her account, some sick troll who saw an inactive memorial page and decided to have some fun. I typed back, my hands shaking. Who is this? No answer. I immediately went into damage control. I changed her password. I changed my password. I enabled 2-factor authentication. I checked the login history on her account to see where the hacker was located. The location data loaded. I froze. Login location, home. IP address. Current session. According to Facebook, the message was coming from my own computer. I told myself it was a glitch, a bug in the system. I told myself I was tired. I closed the laptop and tried to sleep. I didn't sleep well. A few days passed. I tried to forget about it. Then, it happened again. Ping. Walking. Then, an hour later, cold. I sat there, reading those words over and over. Walking. Cold. Hello. There was something familiar about them. I started scrolling up. Way up. Back to 2011. Back to when she was alive. I found the original messages. On a winter day in 2011, I had messaged her asking how she got to work. She replied, walking. On another day, she complained about the weather, cold. But then I looked closer. The syntax was weird. And then I realized these weren't her messages. These were my messages. I had sent her a message once saying, I'm walking home. I had sent her a message saying, it's really cold out. Whatever was controlling her account wasn't Emily. It was learning from us. It was recycling old words from our chat logs to form new sentences. It was like a parrot mimicking a conversation it didn't understand. It made me sick. It felt like something was wearing her skin. I thought about deleting the account right then. I hovered over the button, but I couldn't do it. I needed to know who was doing this. I needed to catch them. The psychological torture escalated. It moved from text to images. I started getting notifications that Emily had tagged me in a photo. Now, Emily loved taking photos. We had hundreds of albums. But when I clicked the notification, I didn't see a memory. It was a photo of us at a picnic from 3 years prior. In the original, I was sitting on a blanket and she was leaning her head on my shoulder. But in this new upload, she was gone. It wasn't just cropped. She had been digitally removed. Where her body should have been, there was just a blur, a patch of cloned grass and sky. It was sloppy, glitchy editing, but it was deliberate. I was sitting there, alone on the blanket, smiling at empty space. Then came another one, A photo of us in the car. She was gone from the passenger seat, just the empty seatbelt. Then a photo of us in a doorway, just me, with my arm around thin air. I felt like I was losing my mind. I stopped eating. I stopped going out. I spent my days refreshing the page, waiting for the next glitch, the next erasure. I felt like she was being deleted from existence, piece by piece. I called Facebook support. I sent emails. I got automated responses. We see no suspicious activity on this account. I was alone. It ended on a Tuesday night, the anniversary of the day I first messaged her after she died. I was in my bedroom. I hadn't slept in 24 hours. My eyes were burning. The room was dark, lit only by the blue glow of my monitor. I decided to end it. I opened the chat window. I was going to tell whoever this was that I was calling the police, that I was deleting everything. But before I could type, the 3 dots appeared. Emily is typing. It went on for a long time. Finally, the message came through. Free as ing, spaced out like that. Freezing. And then she sent a file attachment. I hesitated. I knew I shouldn't click it, but my hand moved on its own. I opened the image. The air left my lungs. It was a photo of my bedroom window. It was taken from the outside, looking in. In the photo, through the glass, I could see my own bedroom. I could see my desk. I could see the back of my computer chair. And I could see the back of my own head. The timestamp on the photo was just now. I didn't scream. I went cold. My first thought was that the stalker was outside. I spun around in my chair and ripped the curtains open, ready to fight. The street was empty. The window was on the 2nd floor. There was no balcony, no ledge, no way for a human to be standing there. I looked back at the photo on my screen. I zoomed in, and that's when I saw the reflection. In the glass of the window in the photo, there was a reflection of the camera flash. The flash wasn't coming from outside. The reflection showed that the photo was taken from behind me, from the dark corner of my room where my closet door was slightly ajar. I slowly turned my chair around. The closet door was open a few inches, and in the darkness of that gap, I saw the faint blue light of a tablet screen. Her old tablet, the one I had packed away in a box months ago, it was glowing. I didn't investigate. I didn't go check the closet. I'm not a hero in a movie. I'm a guy who wanted to live. I grabbed my car keys and my wallet. I ran out of that apartment in my socks. I drove for 6 hours until I ran out of gas in another state. I never went back. I paid a moving company to clear out the place, and I told them to throw away all the electronics. I didn't care about the deposit. I didn't care about my clothes. I live a quiet life now. I work in a bookstore. I read paperbacks. I don't use social media. But sometimes, when I'm walking down the street, I'll hear a notification sound from someone else's phone. That ping, and for a split second, I freeze. I check the space next to me just to make sure I haven't been erased. Use arrow up and arrow down to select a turn, enter to jump to it, and escape to return to the chat. There's a specific kind of silence that you only find at 8,000 feet. It's not peaceful, it's heavy. It presses against your eardrums. 3 years ago, I took a summer job as a fire lookout for the Forest Service. My post was a tower in the Pacific Northwest, about 40 miles from the nearest paved road. If you've never been to a lookout tower, picture a small, glass-walled box, maybe 4 feet by 14 feet, perched on top of a steel skeleton rising 60 feet into the air. You are living in a fishbowl in the sky. You have a bed, a propane stove, a radio, and a 360-degree view of endless green wilderness. The only way in or out is a narrow metal catwalk that wraps around the outside, and a single door. For the first month, it was heaven. I read books, I drank coffee watching the sunrise over the valley. I radioed in my status reports twice a day. Tower 4, all clear. I felt like the king of the world. I felt untouchable. But the thing about being a lookout is that while you can see everything, everything can also see you. At night, when you have your lantern on, you are a beacon, a single star of light in a universe of pitch black forest. It started on a Tuesday night in July. There was a storm rolling in low pressure, heavy wind, the kind of wind that makes the whole tower sway and groan on its steel legs. I turned off my lantern early to save propane and lay in bed, listening to the wind howl. And then, through the noise of the storm, I heard it. Clang. It was the sound of a boot hitting metal. I froze. My heart hammered against my ribs. I told myself it was just the wind rattling the structure. Clang. It was louder, closer. I sat up. I knew that sound. That was the sound of the steel grate steps that led up the tower. There were 4 flights of stairs, zigzagging up to the catwalk. Clang, clang, clang. Someone was walking up the stairs. I looked at my watch. It was 11:45 p.m. No rangers were in the area. No hikers would be climbing a tower in a storm at midnight. I grabbed my flashlight, but I didn't turn it on. I didn't want them to know I was awake. I crept out of bed and crouched below the window line. The footsteps were heavy, deliberate. They weren't rushing, they were rhythmic. I counted the landings. First landing, turn. Second landing, turn. They were getting closer. I crawled across the floor to the radio. I grabbed the handset and keyed the mic. Dispatch, this is Tower 4. Do you copy? Static. Just the hiss of the storm. The lightning must have interfered with the signal, or the repeater was down. I tried again. Dispatch, I have an intruder on the stairs. I need assistance. Over. Nothing. Clang, clang, clang. They were on the final flight of stairs. I realized with a sick feeling in my stomach that I had forgotten to lock the door. The door to the catwalk was glass paned, just like the windows. If I stood up to lock it now, they would see me. But if I didn't lock it, they would come right in. I scrambled on my hands and knees. I reached up and clicked the deadbolt shut just as a shadow fell across the glass. I dropped back down to the floor, pressing my back against the cupboards, hiding in the dark. The footsteps stopped. They were on the catwalk. I held my breath. The wind was screaming outside, shaking the glass walls, but I could feel the presence of someone standing just inches away, separated only by a thin pane of glass. I waited for a knock. I waited for a hello, but there was nothing. Then I saw the beam of a flashlight cut through the room. It swept over the ceiling. It swept over my unmade bed. It swept over the stove. The intruder was walking around the catwalk, shining a light inside, looking for me. I squeezed my eyes shut. Don't see me. Please don't see me. The light passed over my head. It paused. Then it moved on. I let out a microscopic breath. Then the doorknob rattled. Click, clack. Click, clack. It shook violently. They were trying to force it. I grabbed the only weapon I had, a heavy iron skillet from the stove. I gripped the handle until my knuckles turned white. The rattling stopped. For 5 minutes, there was silence. I thought maybe they had given up. Maybe they were just a lost hiker looking for shelter, and finding the door locked, they went back down. I slowly raised my head to peek out the window, and then I heard it. Scrape. It wasn't coming from the door. It was coming from the roof. They had climbed the railing of the catwalk and pulled themselves up onto the flat roof of the cabin. I could hear heavy boots walking directly above my head. The wood groaned under the weight. Dust from the ceiling boards trickled down onto my face. What were they doing? Then I heard a sound that made my blood run cold. Scree. It was the sound of metal being pried. The stovepipe, there was a chimney pipe for the wood stove that went through the roof. It wasn't big enough for a person to fit through, but if they tore it out, they could look inside or drop something in. I heard the metal cap of the chimney being ripped off. It clattered across the roof. Then, silence. I stared at the black hole of the stovepipe in the corner of the room. A voice drifted down through the pipe. It was distorted, echoing in the metal tube. I can hear you breathing. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just stared at that pipe, tears streaming down my face. Open the door, the voice whispered. It's cold out here. I stayed in that corner for 6 hours. I listened to him walk around the roof. I listened to him drop pebbles down the chimney pipe, listening to them ping against the cast iron stove. Ping, ping, ping. He was taunting me. He wanted me to panic. He wanted me to run out the door so he could catch me. But I didn't run. I sat there with my iron skillet, shaking, waiting for the sun. Around 5 a.m., the storm broke. The wind died down. I heard the boots move across the roof again, then a thud as he dropped back down to the catwalk. Then, the footsteps on the stairs. Clang, clang, clang. Going down, I waited until the sound faded completely. Then, I waited another hour. When the sun finally crested the mountains, I stood up. My legs were numb. I looked out the window. The forest was empty. I unlocked the door and stepped out onto the catwalk. The air was cold and fresh. I walked around to the side of the cabin. There, on the glass window, right where I had been hiding, was a smudge. It was a handprint. A greasy, dirty handprint. But it wasn't pressed against the glass. It was smeared. He hadn't just looked in. He had pressed his face and hands against the glass, tracing my outline in the dark. He knew exactly where I was the whole time. I radioed dispatch. They sent a ranger unit. They swept the area. They found a campsite at the base of the tower, just a sleeping bag and a pile of cigarette butts. No ID, no car. Whoever he was, he had walked 40 miles into the wilderness just to terrorize me. I packed my bags that morning. I hiked down the trail with the rangers, looking over my shoulder every 10 seconds. I never went back to the tower. I live in the city now. I live on the ground floor. I have bars on my windows. But sometimes, when it's storming and the wind whistles through the alleyways, I can still hear that sound. Ping, ping, ping. And I wonder if he's still out there, walking the tree line, looking for another light in the sky. Use arrow up and arrow down to select a turn, enter to jump to it, and escape to return to the chat.